I need to speak to the art critics, the art history majors, and anyone that has ever thought about ranking a museum. Please don't come for my neck. I swear I come in peace. If I'm in front of a masterpiece, but I'm also butt to butt with 25 different strangers and a tour guide, having to look at the painting through somebody's armpit, it's definitely going to affect the atmosphere. The only place we lingered was outside the bathrooms when we had to use the bathrooms downstairs. I'm so sorry. We're going to be grading pretty strict here. I rated 16 world famous art museums across Paris, London, Italy, New York, and Scotland using an intense 60-point rubric. If you're an art critic, you're probably going to hate me for some of these, but let's get into it. First off, the rubric. We're not going to be grading these off of art snobbery alone. Me personally, I'm usually the one that you have to drag out of the museum, but I'm aware that we're not always traveling with those type of people. So to be completely fair, we're going to be grading all 16 heavyweights across 6 categories on a strict 10-point scale. First category, art. This is just the pure star power, depth, and whether the permanent collection of this museum actually delivers. Now, most of these are pretty famous museums, so it was pretty hard to break this down, to be honest, because most of these collections are world-renowned, but this had to be a category. Second category, flow. This is the ease of mosey. How easy is it to wander through the halls into one gallery from the next? Third, and this is an important one, is crowd. There are a lot of heavy hitters that are going to score pretty low on this one. If I'm in front of a masterpiece, but I'm also butt to butt with 25 different strangers and a tour guide, having to look at the painting through somebody's armpit, it's definitely going to affect the atmosphere, and we're going to be grading pretty strict here. Fourth is architecture. Is the building itself, the museum itself, a work of art? Fifth is lingerability. Something contributing heavily to this score is going to be the cafe. I love a museum cafe, and I've been to many. If there's a good cafe, if there's a good view, if there's an outdoor space that you can spend some time out in, this is all going to add into the lingerability score, and this is going to be an important score for tourists. Sixth is emotional impact. Now, I am an art freak, but I'm also an avid tourist, so this is my totally biased take on how these museums stuck with me, what I remember from them, how I felt inside. So without further ado, let's get into number 16, last on the list. This is totally my personal take. I come in peace. The best part about art and viewing art is that it's totally subjective. So if you totally disagree with these takes, I love it. If you agree with it, I love it as well. I would gladly go back to any single one of these museums and spend a day there. Coming in at number 16 is the Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum in Glasgow, Scotland. A bit about this museum. Housed inside a grand Spanish Baroque-style red sandstone building in Glasgow's West End, Kelvingrove draws over 1 million visitors a year as one of Scotland's most beloved free cultural hubs. It's world-renowned for its eclectic 22-gallery mix of fine art and natural history artifacts, famously anchored by Salvador Dali's iconic Christ of St. John and the Cross hanging above a suspended World War II Spitfire aircraft. Now let's get into how it scored. First off, on art, I gave it a 6. This is a gorgeous museum. There's no reason why anyone shouldn't visit this museum. It is a great day, but stacked against some of the museums on this list, it just doesn't quite hold a candle. There's this main floor where there's like these mannequin heads hanging. Here's a picture actually. Really cool space. The permanent collection and even some of like the rotating collections just really didn't draw me in as much as some of the other museums on this list. Getting into flow. Flow, I'm giving a 6. Not because it wasn't easy to navigate or I didn't enjoy being in there. I just wasn't very excited to wander around. I didn't feel that way. Crowd was an 8, which is actually incredible because this is a free museum, but it was pretty empty in there. I know other people have had different experiences with Kelvingrove. When I went, I was like, where's all the people? Which for a lot of museums is a really great thing, so it's getting an 8 out of 10 on crowd. Next score is architecture. I gave this building a 7 out of 10. It is a gorgeous building. We actually had lunch right across the street overlooking. It's a great building, 7 out of 10. For lingerability, please don't come for my neck. I gave it a 4 out of 10. We didn't go to the cafe. I guess we did take a nap in the yard, but I'm talking about like
wanting to stay
there and spend time. By the time we'd walked around, we're like, okay, if the feeling when you're done at a gallery is like, okay, let's get out of here, that's going to impact your lingerability score. Every museum here is worth worth spending time in and is worth going to. This is just, if we had to put them on a strict 60-point rubric, how would we do it? And that's what we're doing. Emotional impact, I'm so sorry I gave it a 3. For me, a museum as a non-religious person is kind of like church. Like, I go in there and I'm really soaking it in. Museums that scored very high on the emotional impact score really delivered those feelings for me. For Kelvin Grove, I just didn't get that. That brings Kelvin Grove Museum in Glasgow to a cumulative total score of 34 points. Moving on to number 15. I feel like there's a lot of people that are going to disagree with this one, and I'm sorry. Like I said, it is worth a trip. You should go to this museum. But for me, and against this rubric, it just didn't score as high as some of the other museums, which means the 15th museum on our ranking is the Pompidou in Paris. Famous for its radical inside-out industrial architecture, Paris's Centre Pompidou welcomes around 3 million art lovers a year. It stands as a world-renowned pillar of 20th and 21st century creation, boasting Europe's largest collection of modern and contemporary art with groundbreaking works by Henri Matisse, Kandinsky, and Marcel Duchamp. But let's get into the scores and why it's in 15th place. Art, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. The art in this museum is absolutely must-see. It has some of the heaviest hitters from the 20th and 21st century, and it's genuinely very good, very important museum. Flow. I am giving Flow a 6 out of 10. Now, this is a really cool building, different floors for the different collections. I prefer a little bit more of a closed concept, explorative experience in a museum. Like, I do kind of want to get lost. I just didn't prefer it compared to some of the other flows on this list. Crowd. For this museum, I scored crowd a 6 out of 10. And the line was completely long. I think we waited for like over 30 minutes with booking in advance because I always book in advance. I feel like crowd control of getting in could have been better. For architecture, I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. The Pompidou is a pretty amazing building. It has this escalator that you ride up to get into the gallery. A lot of people will go just to see outside what it looks like. So architecturally, I do feel like this needed to score high. Linger. Here's where things really went down, because once we waited in that long line to get into the gallery, my first thought was, let's get to the cafe. I want a little sit and chat moment. Once we got up to the cafe, I quite literally had the worst chai of my life, and I'm not being dramatic. It was actually so gross, which for me is really going to impact the experience because I love a museum cafe. Some of my best days are spent mosey around the museum, sit in the cafe, chat, yap, keep moseying. I didn't get that at this place. I got the worst chai of my life. That's why the score is a drastic 2 out of 10. The only place we lingered was outside the bathrooms when we had to use the bathrooms downstairs. I'm so sorry. Next category, emotional impact. And I was fair here at a 7 out of 10. The art in this museum is going to hit you if you're an art lover, regardless of whether you have the worst chai of your life upon arrival. So to wrap it up, Pompidou in 15th place is getting a cumulative score of 37. Number 14. Before I say what it is, I need to speak to the art critics, the art history majors, and anyone that has ever thought about ranking a museum. Please do not come for my neck, because I understand that this is one of the most pound for pound, most masterpieces per square foot museums. But up against the rubric, I put in 14th place the Frick collection in New York City. Please don't come for my neck. I swear I come in peace. Let's get into the scores. Tucked away on Manhattan's Upper East Side, the Frick collection offers an intimate look at old masters inside the lavish Gilded-Age mansion of industrialist Henry Clay Frick. Drawing around 300,000 visitors a year, this peaceful museum is world-renowned for keeping its world-class collection, including Jean-Honoré Fragonard's The Progress of Love and priceless portraits by Rembrandt and Vermeer displayed in a historic residential setting. Let's get into the scores. For art, I gave it a 9 out of 10. For the size of this museum, it is masterpieces galore. For flow, I'm giving the Frick a 6 out of 10. There's a lot of tight spaces in this museum. You can go through there pretty quickly in terms of the gallery space. You can sprint through there and see mostly everything, but it's pretty tight. And getting into our next category, crowd, which I gave a 5 out of 10, having tight spaces with a 5 out of 10 crowd really does something to the atmosphere. I was actually at the Frick in January with my mother. We had a great time. But headed into the Frick, it was like a 35-minute wait outside in the cold. And then once we got in, it was definitely butt-to-butt viewing. Architecture, I gave this building a 7. It's absolutely beautiful. It's very ornate inside, as you can see here. Also, the outside area with the fountain is stunning. For lingerability, I gave this place a 7 out of 10, and that is primarily for the outdoor space with the fountain. This is a place that you want to take a journal. It has that perfect thing that happens in art museums where people tend to talk a little quieter, which I love. There's not a cafe because it's in a home, but this outdoor space makes up for it. For emotional impact, I gave this place a 7. The memory of being here with my mother really bumped up the score for me. I wish I would have done a little bit more research on this place before heading in because I didn't realize just how jam-packed it really was. Great visit, 7 out of 10. That brings the Frick Collection's cumulative score out of 60 to 41. Next, in 13th place, is the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Located in Midtown Manhattan, MoMA draws roughly nearly 3 million visitors annually and is widely considered the most influential modern art institution in the world. It's famous for defining the canon of modernism, housing bucket list masterpieces like Vincent van Gogh's The Starry Night, Picasso, and Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory. This is actually tied with 12th place. It's so hard. For art, I gave it a 10 out of 10. The permanent collection in the MoMA is absolutely unforgettable and must see. The temporary collections are also amazing. I also went here with my mother. It's actually been a long time since I've been to this place, so I really need to go back. I'm trying to pull from memories, but it's been like almost 10 years, which is crazy. For flow, to be honest, I don't really remember it, and I think that that's maybe a good sign, like no notes is good notes. I gave it an 8 out of 10. For crowd, I gave it a 6 out of 10. This is a very busy museum, especially if you go during peak times. For the next category, architecture, I gave this a 7 out of 10. It definitely fits the vibe. Stacked up against some of these other museums, though, we had to give it a 7 out of 10. Lingerability, I also gave it a 7 out of 10. I remember there's this one specific installation and it had like amphitheater seats and you sat there and then there was a screen in the middle and screens on the sides of people talking and facing each other. And I remember me and my mom sitting there for like 15 minutes. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about lingerability, is how much soaking it in is happening. And I remember there's a lot of soaking it in at this place. For emotional impact, I gave this museum a 7 out of 10. This is biased because it's been a long time since I've been to this museum, so memories have faded a little bit. So 7 out of 10. That brings the MoMA in 13th place to a cumulative score of 45 out of 60. Moving up the rank in 12th place is the National Gallery in London. Presiding over Trafalgar Square in the heart of London, the National Gallery welcomes over 3 million visitors annually with completely free admission. It's world-renowned for presenting an unbroken story of Western European painting from the 13th to the 19th century, holding world-famous treasures like Jan van Eyck's The Arnolfini Portrait, Diego Velázquez's The Rokeby Venus, and Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers. Coming in 12th place, I feel like this museum is absolutely must-see. It's a totally solid choice. The art, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. It doesn't get 3 million visitors a year for no reason. The permanent collection is very incredible. The reason why it got a 9 and MoMA got 10 is really emotional and biased for me. I also had a cold when I was in London, and it was the last stop on like a 5-leg trip in Europe back in 2024. So that may be contributing here. Next, flow. I feel like the flow of this museum was very good. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I remember lots of wandering. You also get that perfect thing that happens when everybody's very quiet and it's just this expansive space where you can view and take it all in. For crowd, this is where points got docked. I gave it a 6 out of 10. This is a super busy museum. The line is extremely long. Architecture, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's a beautiful building. It's in a beautiful spot. It's in the heart of London. 8 out of 10. Lingerability, this ties back to what I mentioned during flow. I gave it a 9 out of 10. The cafe in this museum is really good. We got a croissant and a coffee before we started, and I just absolutely love that. For emotional impact, I gave it a 6 out of 10. The trip that I visited this museum during was a trip where I had some extremely profound museum experiences. This was at the tail end of that trip. I had such a bad cold that I had to wear like those sleepwear nasal strips in public. That being said, you should go. I would go back. I would actually love to go back when I don't have to wear a nasal strip in public. But for what I'm working with now, it's getting a 6 out of 10, which brings it to a cumulative score of 46 out of 60. In 11th place is the National Galleries of Scotland Modern 1 and 2. Set amidst lush sculpture parks in Edinburgh's West End, the National Galleries of Modern Art Modern 1 and 2 welcome around 500,000 visitors a year across 2 striking historic buildings. The institution is world-renowned as Scotland's home for modern and contemporary creation, showcasing exceptional surrealist and pop art pieces by Edoardo Paolozzi, Salvador Dali, and Joan Miro. I just remember this being a really great day. For art, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I loved the collections in this space. It was very easy to get caught up into. I feel like for people that maybe aren't as into modern or contemporary art, like my husband, is maybe not as fascinating as some of the other museums for that type of person. For me, I ate it up. For flow, I also gave it an 8 out of 10. It's in these 2 historic buildings that have the perfect layout that I love, which is open but also kind of closed concept. So lots of wandering, but you can also feel cozy and kind of get lost. For crowd, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I don't know how many people know about this museum. Average tourists. We had a lot of this museum to ourselves. Unlike the Kelvin Grove, being some of the only people in there actually felt very cozy and romantic. It didn't feel boring and expansive. Architecture, I gave it 8. It's in these 2 historic buildings. So you go to the first building, you do all the galleries there, and then you go to Modern 2, do all the galleries there. It's really unique to go from one building to the other. I actually really liked that. The grounds are gorgeous. The West End of Edinburgh is so lush and green, and there's these sculpture gardens that you walk through. It was rainy when we went there. For Linger, low-key, I feel like this could be higher. I gave it a 7 out of 10 because they have this outdoor cafe space that is stunning. We stopped, got a little drink. It was very easy to linger in there. Like I said, I feel like for the average tourist, this maybe isn't the most lingerable museum, but if you're anything like me, this is definitely a place you want to stick around. Emotional impact, I gave a 6 out of 10, not because I didn't love this place. I loved it, but it's just stack ranked against some extremely impactful museums for me. So 6 out of 10 means go see it. I loved it. I would go again, but just wait because these ones coming up have like 10 out of 10 impact scores. That brings the National Galleries of Scotland Modern 1 and 2 to a cumulative score of 46. We're now getting into the top 10 of this ranking, and coming in hot at number 10, also from Scotland, is the National Galleries of Scotland. Let me tell you a little bit more about them. Located in the center of Edinburgh along the Mound, the National Gallery of Scotland draws over 1 million visitors a year with its grand neoclassical architecture and free entry. It is world-renowned for preserving Scotland's national collection of fine art, featuring Scottish masterworks like Sir Henry Raebur's The Skating Minister, alongside global treasures by Botticelli, Rembrandt, and Vermeer. For art, I'm giving this museum a 9 out of 10. I loved this museum. It was so easy for me to love it, and it was also so easy for my husband, or I really think any tourist, to love it. I feel like it's very fascinating the whole way through. For flow, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. This was a very easy museum to wander around, and I feel like the galleries were very easy to navigate. It's in this beautiful building right on top of the mound of this park in the center of Edinburgh, and you just kind of start exploring the second you get in. For crowd, I am also giving this museum an 8 out of 10. For a free entry museum to have an 8 out of 10 crowd, I feel like is something to shout about, because usually free entry museums are that butt-to-butt viewing we've talked about. For architecture, I am also giving this museum an 8 out of 10. I have a very special memory. We were just sitting right outside this museum, and there was this street performer, and his voice was like echoing through the entire place. I feel like the building adds so much to this gallery, which is why I got an 8 out of 10. For lingerability, this was a very high scorer, a 9 out of 10. We went in, we got a pastry, we yapped, and then we immediately started walking around. Then by the end, there's these gorgeous windows that you can sit at and watch the people in the park. Major linger factor here. For emotional impact, as for bucket list level experience, it was more so just a great day, which is why I gave it a 6 out of 10. I honestly feel like that's a little bit low. That gives us a cumulative score of a 47 out of 60. We're now in the top 9. We're going to start talking about some very heavy hitters, bucket list level experiences. Coming in at number 9, the Uffizi. in Florence. Located in the historic heart of Florence, the Uffizi Gallery draws over 2 million visitors annually and stands as the ultimate shrine to Renaissance art. Originally built as judicial offices for the ruling Medici family, it is world-renowned for housing the finest collection of Italian Renaissance paintings on earth. I feel like you'd have to lock me up in jail if I gave this gallery anything other than a 10 out of 10 on art. There were times where I was standing in front of pieces and I was like, I need to stare at this as long as I can because I never want to forget what I'm looking at right now. You could easily say this is the most important museum in the world. It has to be a 10 out of 10. I gave Flow an 8 out of 10. It has this big hallway where you walk and you go into the galleries. It gets a little bit repetitive, but it is very easy to navigate. You go in and out. Okay, crowd. This is where things get a little bit dicey. I gave crowd a 5 out of 10. Everybody's trying to get in there, obviously. You're shoulder to shoulder in line for Caravaggio. And it was so freaking hot. Like, I was sweating. Architecture, I'm giving a 10 out of 10. These buildings used to be judicial offices for the Medici. The last Medici heir, Anna Maria Luisa, signed a pact donating all of the art in the Uffizi, which was actually just Medici family art collection, to the city of Florence on one condition, which was it could never leave the city. So her signing that pact actually cemented Florence as the art capital of the world. For Linger, I don't really remember a cafe unless I missed it. We definitely didn't sit at a cafe. By the end, you're so taken back by everything that you saw and all of the masterpieces that you just got to lay eyes on. But at the same time, you're like, I need a spritz. Like, I'm sweating. So for the Linger, I gave it a 5 out of 10. Emotional impact, this was a 10 out of 10 for me, which brings the Uffizi to a cumulative score of 48 out of 60. Okay, bit of a hot take coming up. Coming in 8th place is the Accademia, also in Florence. Welcoming nearly 2 million visitors a year, Florence's Accademia may be compact, but holds monumental significance. It is world-renowned as the ultimate home of Renaissance sculpture, drawing travelers from every corner of the globe to stand in awe before Michelangelo's original David alongside his unfinished slaves. 10 out of 10 art. Nothing compares to being at the feet of David looking up. For Flow, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. You can't really get confused in this place. You walk in, there he is. For Crowd, I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. I feel like you could argue it should be lower because it's pretty packed. Like, you get in there and everybody's looking at David. Despite that, we were still able to sit down and like observe from multiple angles. For architecture, it frames David very beautifully. I don't think though it's one of those places where people are like going to look at the Accademia. You know what I mean? Like, you go to the Louvre, people go to the Louvre, they go take pictures of the Louvre, their fingers on top of the pyramid. Like, that's what I mean. A 10 out of 10 architecture, not to give anything away, but it's a place like that. For Linger, and I feel like this is maybe a little bit unexpected because it's a small gallery, but this is a very lingerable space. Not because there's an incredible cafe or there's a garden outside, but because this museum is really set up for you to take in the statues. There's these benches around David where you can sit and look for a very long time, and that's exactly what we did. Emotional impact, similar to the Uffizi, it's going to be a 10 out of 10. It blew me away, and I really, really loved it. I would absolutely go back just to take it all in again. That brings the Accademia to a cumulative score of 49 out of 60. We're now at the 7th on our list. Coming in hot is the Vatican Museums in Rome. Welcoming nearly 7 million visitors a year, the Vatican Museums in Rome represent one of the most magnificent artistic display spaces in the world. This vast complex is world-renowned for housing immense classical Roman sculptures, Raphael's breathtaking rooms, and Michelangelo's incomparable frescoes inside the Sistine Chapel. The art's a 10 out of 10, obviously. It's incredible. It took my breath away, 10 out of 10. Flow, I'm giving a 7 out of 10. I actually feel like these were a little bit hard to navigate. Like, you had to follow the signs a lot. Not as easy to wander in. Flow was not perfect, but it wasn't bad. Proud. Now, this is one of the most visited museums in the world, and it shows because we stood in line for a long time. Like, one of us went and got coffee while we were waiting. You don't know which line you're supposed to be in. Crowds are crazy. And it's also hot in there. Architecture is a 10 out of 10. It absolutely fits the grandeur of the masterpieces inside. I honestly don't know enough about it, but it was gorgeous, and I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Okay, lingerability, I gave a 7 out of 10. I don't really remember a cafe. We went first thing in the morning, and I feel like it surprised me how quickly we went through. There are some gorgeous outdoor spaces. The Sistine Chapel, it's very easy to want to linger in front of these masterpieces. That is for sure. Emotional impact got a 10 out of 10, and I have a core memory from this place, which is the Sistine Chapel. 15-year-old me, never in a million years could have dreamed of me getting to be there. I just remember walking into that room and literally my neck was hurting from looking up for so long, and just the history of those frescoes and the meaning behind them. It's world-changing stuff. And to get to be there surrounded by it, and it's very quiet and reverent, it had a massive impact on me. Absolutely a core memory that I'll never forget. That brings the Vatican museums in Rome to a cumulative score of 49 out of 60. Moving up the list in 6th place is the Peggy Guggenheim Collection in Venice. Situated directly on Venice's Grand Canal inside the 18th century Palazzo Venier del Leone, the Peggy Guggenheim Collection welcomes roughly 400,000 visitors a year. It is world-renowned for its deeply personal atmosphere, housing heirs Peggy Guggenheim's personal cache of avant-garde 20th century art, featuring landmark Cubist, Surrealist, and abstract expressionist pieces by Jackson Pollock, Rene Magritte, and Pablo Picasso. I freaking love this museum so much. The art is a 10 out of 10. Me personally, as an artist, the art that I relate most to and that I find extremely fascinating is clearly exhibited within this collection. I was eating this place up. For flow, I am giving this place also a 10 out of 10. I loved how small it was. You go in and there's lots of exploring going on, but in a smaller setting. It's not a big museum. Crowd got a 4 out of 10. Pretty incredible collection. So I understand why so many people are trying to get in there, but oh my gosh, like squishing your way through to look at the stuff. The collection and the location and the vibe made up for it, but this is one of the worst crowds I've seen. At least when we went, it was bad. Architecture, I gave a 10 out of 10. It's right on the Grand Canal and you can actually go outside and look at the water. It's just a beautiful, very intimate, nice building. Other than the shoulder to shoulder squishing through the halls, it was a great place to be. Lingerability, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I had to get dragged out of this place. My husband was like, we have to go. I wanted to sit at the benches. I was going back to rooms that I'd already been in. Being in the sculpture gardens were gorgeous. Going outside and looking at the water. It was just very atmospheric, very easy to be there. For emotional impact, I actually gave this place an 8 out of 10. My art teacher actually told me to go. I didn't know about it, and I was so pleasantly surprised, and I would totally go back. Whenever I'm talking to anyone that's going to Venice, I'm like, you gotta go. Which brings us to a cumulative score of 51 out of 60. Okay, home stretch, we're now in the top 5. These are not only completely world-renowned bucket list museums, but also museums that scored extremely high in every category and knocked my socks clean off. Coming in at number 5 is the Borghese Gallery in Rome. Tucked inside the serene Villa Borghese gardens in Rome, the Galleria Borghese enforces strict capacity limits to offer an intimate experience for around 500,000 visitors a year. It's world-renowned for its breathtaking Baroque opulence, boasting a private collection of dramatic Caravaggio canvases and Bernini's mind-bending marble masterpieces like Apollo and Daphne and The Rape of Proserpina. I'm not trying to be boring by giving everybody a 10 out of 10 in the art category here, but there's no way that I can't. We went to this museum our first night in Rome, which meant it was my first Caravaggio in real life, and that's important. So for that reason, it's getting a 10 out of 10. For flow, this is a very easy to wander gallery, and part of that comes down to our next category, which is crowd. This is getting a 10 out of 10 on crowd. They limit their capacity, so you have to book in advance. It's 2-hour time slots. You're in and then you leave. But for that reason, it is a very intimate experience. I'm pretty sure they're like known for their crowd control. For architecture, I'm also giving this museum a 10 out of 10. The entire building is a work of art. If you knew nothing about the art inside, you would still be blown away by just how gorgeous it is in there. Okay, for lingerability, I actually gave this one a 6 out of 10. Not because it wasn't a place that I wanted to be, but you have a 2-hour time slot, so you really can't linger. You gotta get in and out because the next group is coming. For emotional impact, this scored a very high 8 out of 10. I'm a massive Caravaggio fan. Getting to see these works and also have one-on-one time. It was my first gallery in Rome, which is kind of a core memory. That brings the Borghese to a cumulative 53 out of 60. Number 4, and this may surprise you, is the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, the Met. Welcoming over 5 million visitors a year, the Met sits along Manhattan's Museum Mile as the largest art museum in the Americas. It is world-renowned for its encyclopedic reach across 5,000 years of global history, housing famous treasures ranging from the ancient Egyptian Temple of Dendur to Emmanuel Lutzi's massive Washington crossing the Delaware. For art, the Met is getting a 10 out of 10. Like the description says, this collection spans thousands of years. It is an educational experience to go to the Met, and there is so much to see. Anywhere you go in the Met is going to knock your socks off. For flow, I'm giving this place a 7 out of 10. Not because it's not easy to wander around, but it is absolutely massive, and it's a little bit difficult to know where to prioritize your time. I actually went to the Met for the first time in January with my mother, and we spent all day in there. And by the end, we got upstairs and we'd spent so much time in the Egyptian rooms that the place was about to close. We had to get out of there. And we were like, oh my gosh, if we would have known all this amazing stuff was up here, we wouldn't have lingered so much in the Egyptian rooms. Not that they're not amazing. For crowd, I'm giving this place an 8 out of 10. I feel like it was pretty controlled. Probably because it's just so massive. One reason why this didn't get a higher crowd score is because of the coat check. If you've ever checked a coat at the Met, you know what I'm talking about. Because we had to wait in that line for way too long, and we had a dinner reservation, and we had to sprint out of there, and the coat check was taking forever. But other than the coat check, I feel like it's pretty good. Architecture, I'm giving a 9 out of 10. Inside with the Temple of Dendur and the water is so gorgeous. And part of the reason why I'm giving architecture a 9 out of 10 is because of this photo. This is a photo of my mom on her 50th birthday on the steps of the Met. I'll never forget this photo. She's wearing her tiara. I have to credit the building because this picture is so special to me. For Linger, this museum is getting a 10 out of 10. This has got to be like the most lingerable museum ever. You go in there, all you do is linger. It's a whole day of lingering. There's so many different cafes. We visited multiple, and it's very easy to get lost and roam. For emotional impact, I am giving this museum a 10 out of 10. I went to this museum with my mom on her 50th birthday, and she was wearing this tiara that said 50, and it was both our first time in the Met. Everybody saw her tiara and told her happy birthday. She's the same as me, like we both will linger. Like you have to pull us both out of there. It's actually one of my most precious memories being there with her. Bringing the Met to a cumulative 54 out of 60 score. Coming in third place for our overall ranking out of 16, we are now in the top 3. Number 3 out of 16 is the world famous Louvre in Paris. Welcoming nearly 9 million people a year, the Louvre in Paris is the largest and most visited museum on the planet. Housed in a historic royal palace, it's world-renowned for spanning thousands of years of human civilization and housing legendary icons like Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, the Venus de Milo, and the Winged Victory of Samothrace. I feel like it'd be pretty hard to do a ranking every museum video and not have the Louvre in the top 3. This place is absolutely bucket list. I can't believe I'm here. Such an incredible place to be. For art, it's getting a 10 out of 10. For flow, it's getting a 9 out of 10. Because it is so huge, it is very easy not only to wander, but to get like seriously lost. So it's a little bit confusing, but it is also so fascinating and inspiring the entire way through. The category that is bumping everyone down on this list, crowd, is really why the Louvre is in third place. The Louvre is getting a 6 out of 10. A little hack for you if you're going to the Louvre. Don't go upstairs or whatever the entrance that seems obvious. Don't go to that one. But if you go down, like under the pyramid, that entrance is easy breezy. And we got in just fine. There was no wait. We even stopped for Starbucks first, which was great. So the line to get in was really no problem, but we spent all
day
at the Louvre. Even if you have an early entry time, it's going to be slammed. There were periods of time where we were closed in, walking with the mob of people. It's slammed. It's like the most visited museum in the world, but it's completely worth it. It's worth being sweaty. It's worth smelling the person next to you. That's part of it. For architecture, this got a 10 out of 10. You don't take these type of photos with a museum and not get a 10 out of 10. People are spending time at the Louvre in the Tuileries Gardens just to be by it. So I think it's pretty obvious that this is going to get a 10 out of 10. For lingerability, I'm also giving this a 10 out of 10. There are multiple cafes. It's kind of like a mall when you're walking in there. There's lots of places to like grab breakfast before you go in if you have an early entry like we did. And it's hard not to spend all day in here. So very lingerable, but also you just don't want to leave. It's so incredible and so breathtaking. All of our museums in the top 3 got a 10 out of 10 on the emotional impact score. I've dreamed of going to the Louvre my whole life. I remember walking into these statue rooms and feeling so amazed. Like those statue rooms, I almost feel like you can feel the spirit and the stories of those statues. That room specifically, which was the first room we really walked into, is when it hit me and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm at the Louvre. This is one of my best days of my life was at the Louvre. It was for my first wedding anniversary and I was there with my husband. I obviously got to see art that I couldn't believe I was looking at. Being in a place as special as Paris is absolutely a core memory for me. Bringing the Louvre to a total score of 53 out of 60. Okay, number 2 is definitely controversial. I feel like people are going to be like, you put that above the Louvre. But you have to remember the categories that we're scoring against. Coming in second place is the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York City. Standing out on Manhattan's Upper East Side, the Guggenheim welcomes over 1 million visitors a year into Frank Lloyd Wright's iconic spiral-shaped architectural landmark. It's world-renowned for redefining how audiences interact with art, pairing its famous rotunda with an exceptional collection of early modern, impressionist, and abstract works by artists like Wassily Kandinsky and Paul Klee. I love the Guggenheim. I had such a great day when I was at the Guggenheim, which was in January with my mother, the same trip that I've been talking about. For art, I gave this a 9 out of 10. I actually learned about Gabrielle Munter for the first time in this museum. They had a massive collection of her work there when we were there in January, and me and my mom couldn't get enough. She's one of my favorite artists now, and I loved going back to galleries that we'd already spent time in and soaking in it again. And the reason why I gave this a 9 out of 10 is because on the walls surrounding the rotunda, I guess is what that's called, there was art by like a living artist that was being featured. And I feel like it was almost too much of the Guggenheim that was featuring this one artist. I honestly don't remember his name. A lot of his work was really cool and I loved it. And there was other parts where I was like, I feel like this real estate could be used for something better. For flow, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. The spiral viewing experience makes this extremely wanderable. It's just such an incredible building and very easy to be in. For crowd, I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. I'm not sure if that's a hot take or not, but it really was not busy when we were there. Like just very like ambient and cozy, and everyone was just there walking around taking it in. For architecture, this building is known for its architecture. It's a Frank Lloyd Wright building. It is part of the art of this museum. The spiral and watching the people walk across from you, here's a video of that, I feel like is kind of a masterpiece in and of itself. In the cafe, which we'll get into, there's these views of Central Park, and when we went in January, it was like snow globes snowing. And I just remember being like, I absolutely love this building. I could be in here all day, which takes me into Linger, which is also getting a 10 out of 10. We were there all day long and we could have been there longer. I think we had somewhere we needed to be afterwards and we were like, we had to like rip ourselves out of there. I'd be like, oh mom, we have to go. And then I'd be like, oh wait, let's look at this. And then we'd look and she'd be like, oh, we have to go. And then she would be like, oh wait, look at this. And we couldn't get out of there. Also the cafe. I don't know if it's debatable or not, but I think that the Guggenheim has the best museum cafe I've spent time in. We just had snow globes, snow surrounding us. It was just such a good day. Also, they will have performers. While we were there was someone on the ground floor reciting poetry. Like, it's just such a chill place to be. I could have been there all day long. I was there all day long. It was the best. 10 out of 10. That brings the Guggenheim to a total score near perfect of 57 out of 60. The time has come. We have made it to the #1 museum of this video. If you've made it this far, you are a trooper. The sun's literally going down. I've been yapping. But this museum scored extremely high in all 6 categories and is our top S tier best ranked museum of this video. My top ranked museum is, drumroll, the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. Set inside a breathtaking 1900 Beaux Arts railway station along the Seine, Paris's Musée d'Orsay draws over 3 million visitors annually. It's world famous for housing the premier collection of Impressionist and post-Impressionist masterpieces on Earth, featuring iconic works like Van Gogh's Starry Night, Monet's Poppies, and Renoir's Dance at the Moulin de la Galette. Our top-ranked museum scored very high, near perfect, in almost every category, and art is one of them. We got a 10 out of 10. Now that I think about it, this was actually the first museum I've ever been to in Europe, which is maybe why it's #1. But when I went to this museum, I didn't know as much as I know now about art history, and I was still completely blown away. I love Impressionist and post-Impressionist work. I just remember being so happy and being like, oh my gosh, I'm here in Paris for the first time, and it's my first wedding anniversary, and I'm having a great day, and the collection's incredible. It's world-renowned. Flo also got a 10 out of 10. This is a ginormous museum. There's so much to it, and I feel like it's kind of deceiving. Like, it just keeps going. Very easy to wander, very easy to keep wandering. The only category that this museum did not get a perfect score in, can you guess it, is crowd. I still ranked it very high, an 8 out of 10. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but when we went, there was not that bad of a wait at the door, and once we got in there, it was not packed at all. It's very airy, very easy to go from gallery to gallery. So I gave it an 8 out of 10. Architecture also got a 10 out of 10, sitting right on the Seine in this railway station with this gorgeous clock. There's so many rooms in here that look out into the most gorgeous views of Paris, like this right here. I actually don't know that much about this building either, like historically, but it's incredible and it's gorgeous. For Linger, to be ranked #1, you have to get a 10 out of 10 in the Linger category, and Musée d'Orsay definitely did. The cafe is so good. Here's a video of us in the cafe. There's so many spots for you to sit and take a break, and it's very easy to spend a ton of time in this museum. It's also just so beautiful in there that even if you're not looking at the art, you want to be inside. Emotional impact, I am giving also a 10 out of 10. This was my first museum in Europe, my first full day in Paris, on my first wedding anniversary trip. So such a core memory. So across all categories, that brings Musée d'Orsay to a near perfect score of 58 out of 60. If you made it to the end of today's video, thank you so much for watching. I had such a blast compiling this list and making this rubric and thinking back to truly some of my most special days. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I would love to hear from you. If you've been to any of these museums and think that any of my takes are crazy, please let me know in the comments. If you agree with me, let me know. I am not a master art historian, so if there's something, and surely there is, that I don't know about any of these places that you think warrants a way higher ranking across categories, please let me know. But again, thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to see you in the next one, and have a great day.